Hello, everybody. Good morning, afternoon. So I would like to talk about how you run your database. And initially I put on premise, but what I really mean by this is if you run your database really without locking, and if you're able to decide how to run your database. So I used this kind of inter-exchangeable freedom on premise, lock-in free, and I think, yeah, that's how you should run your database. And a few words about company. I represent company Percona. We help our customers since 2006 to run open source databases. We help successfully with MySQL, MongoDB, PostgreSQL, and now we are committed to support Volky as one of our most popular databases. And about me, few words. I'm a co-founder and been in Percona since 2006, and currently I'm a technology fellow around a different technology of interest, and my current interest is Volky. So that's why I talk about this. And a few words of introduction of why I think what shaped my interest to free databases. So I'm born and raised my teenage years in USSR, and I think that's one of the best way to to get desire for freedom, to be born and raised in capitalism, socialism country, on whatever it was. So yeah, word freedom has a special meaning for me. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about free software and open source. And I would like to remind this old page from GNU organization when they talk about philosophy and the four essential freedoms. And I'm sure you heard about that, but I like to iterate them every so often, and especially in connection with databases. I think they might shine additional angles. So to iterate these freedoms, freedom to run software or database as you wish, to study how it works, look into source code, to be freedom to make changes and to redistribute copies of your work, and freedom to distribute copy of original work, and freedom to distribute of your changes to anybody else in the world. And to reminder that freedom does not necessarily mean it's free of money. It does not necessarily mean non-commercial. At the very end, somebody has to pay, well, at very least for me being here, for me flying from United States to Vienna. So that's imply some commercial usage and implies that we should be able to make money from databases. So just to highlight that freedom does not mean it's free of cost, at least for me. And why do we care about freedom in databases? For me, well, you know, that's there are new sayings that data is new gold, data is everywhere, and as with any gold rush, their shovel seller would like to lock you in and to get to extract more money from you. And especially with data, I think it even makes more complicated. more data you have, it's harder to move it's somewhere else. It's principle of data gravity. So traditionally, when you settle your data in some kind of database, you tend to stay with that solution, and the more data you put in, it's harder and harder for you to move out, and that's why I think you should choose a database which allows your freedoms to make your choices. And of course, open source databases, the databases which are focused on our, is, in my opinion, antidote for lock-in. So some there are multiple open source choices for databases, but of course there are dragons, and sorry for me for abusing AI images. And let's talk about open source governance principles and these dragons, how they affect your database choice. So we can see recently there are two ways how open source governance work. There is a foundation-driven, when multiple vendors put their efforts together and work on the sharing goals. And there we seen, even since my scale started, and I started in Percona 2006, there have been multiple efforts when open source product driven by a single vendor. And the single vendor often comes with these caveats and the dragon. And single vendor, again, shovel sellers for you gold, they want to extract more money and lock you in. So single vendor databases, they tend to be, of course, venture funded or public companies, and they're very concerned about competition which comes from cloud. And we seen recently whole wave, and it continues, of changing licenses from real open source licenses to some variant of kind of or semi-open source, but really with focus to lock you in. And yeah, to be fair, some names of MongoDB, Redis, because we, of course, we're speaking about Volky, CockroachDB, Timescale, HashiCorp, Elastic. And to be fair of Elastic, recently Elastic went into this semi-open source license and now back into open source, but now different. Now they are under AGPL license, which is still, in my opinion, for efforts to prohibit cloud vendors to provide Elasticsearch as a solution. So yeah, they all afraid of cloud vendors, and their primary goal is to create a monopoly on database as service market. So these companies, they want to be single and only vendor for a database as a service solution, and they are trying to protect themselves from companies like Amazon, Google, Oracle Cloud, being able to provide a database as a service solution. Yes, your question.
Quick question. When you are saying, or when you're talking about the single vendor database, can you repeat? So I'm going to repeat that. When you're talking about the single vendor database, can you maybe refer to the stage in which the single vendor is at in terms of Is it just an idea? I'm going to develop this database, or I've done some work, maybe 1 year, 2 years in. At which stage are we at? Because I haven't, or yeah, maybe it's my lack of knowledge. I'm not sure that I've seen a database that from the get-go, from the first day, a bunch of different companies came together and said, we need this type of database, let's collaborate, let's create something from nothing together. It's always some company or some individual that starts, and at that point in time, it's a single vendor.
Yes, well, there are several layers. First of all, there's a database like Postgres, which, of course, maybe someone initially started that as individual, but Postgres always was a foundation-driven, collaborative-driven database. And of course, when you're speaking about a database we just started, it may be single developer. What I'm speaking about single vendor is big companies, again, already funded, maybe venture funded, like MongoDB, again, like Redis, like CockroachDB, like TimescaleDB, that somebody already put a lot of money into the database. And they are rarely community-driven and collaboration-driven. They are driven mainly by their own roadmap and how they want to provide this database. So basically, at this point of time, I say open source idea becomes kind of like marketing tool for them, not open source as a community collaboration driven, but a marketing tool to drive adoption and then to, at some point of time, to have that bite and switch, like license change. So that's what I mean by single vendor. And we have seen a rise of database as services, and there currently, I think, a modern way for you to consume database because they provide simplicity, automation, how you collaborate with database, maximizes developers' time with them to being able to focus on application and not how you manage and deploy your database. This whole meet, basically, I'm saying we've seen more and more just click and deploy database, and where all this logic, complex logic of deployment, failovers, maintenance, configuration hidden into automatic way. And when I'm speaking about single vendors, and they want to have monopoly on database service they provide, it comes with problem. Problem being that is at that point of time it becomes not much different from proprietary software. And database vendor lock-in, you may start very easily. It's again very simple click and deploy database. It may be easy and not painful right now, but when you grow, when your data grows, again the data gravity, it's going to be painful in future. And all these licenses we have seen, whole alphabet soup, SSPL, BSL, Redis source available license, all licenses to create this lock-in solution, to lock in into that specific database. And one example, yeah, we can talk about why do you care, and just recently this week on Twitter, yeah, because when a single vendor like MongoDB control database and how it's deployed, they make decision which is limits you and how to use this database. So All right. And yeah, to get a loop back to this, how it limits your freedom, I think this all this kind of open source licenses created to exactly limit your freedom, how you distribute copies and how you distribute copies of your modified versions to others. So basically, we cannot, I cannot consider this kind of open source licenses as licenses to give you freedom for databases. But yeah, I was speaking about single vendor licenses, and now they're foundation-based open source. And this is where I believe open source solutions, open source databases should be developed. It comes with a strong community, and there is no single vendor that controls how database developed and governed. And in this case, actually, cloud, I think, very helpful. The cloud is not seen as an enemy and someone who tries to steal your work. Cloud is very helpful to maximize and simplify adoptions to drive more interest to this solution. And it gives back original idea of cloud. Again, back to 2006, I think AWS just started, and I think it was idea that cloud computing should be just like electricity, like utility service, that you use it everywhere. And now we see in some developments, clouds provides look into way to lock you in some cloud deployments, especially databases. For example, like Amazon RDS or Amazon Aurora are some ways to lock in your database. But I appreciate Amazon playing different role as Volky, being as a real community players and community development. And the way how we can utilize cloud and use cloud with open source project, community-driven project, and which simplify development and deployment, I think that's a cloud native initiative. It's a freedom to run everywhere that considers cloud as a community. It appreciates open source and their variety of vendors you can choose from. So, and often cloud native means it comes with Kubernetes. We see Kubernetes being used more and more. So it is universally available. It's getting better and better for stateful applications like databases, and Kubernetes operators being available now for more and more for most popular open source databases. In the Percona, we provide Kubernetes operator for our databases. I think that's a great way to provide day one and day two automation tools. It provides similar experience how you may run database as service. It's still maybe somewhat problematic and cumbersome with the user experience. So that's why we offer and we look in how we can provide a database as service based on Kubernetes. And this week in Percona, we offered our solution. Sorry for it's a little bit self-advertisement, but that's our way how we can see how you can run a database as service in a really freedom way without lock-in. So we offer Percona Everest, where with unified user interface, and based on Kubernetes operators, you can deploy currently MongoDB, MySQL, and Postgres databases in your Kubernetes environment, which basically practically means you can deploy it everywhere. You can have your Kubernetes operators on premise, you can have it in a cloud, you can have it in a hybrid cloud, and you can have unified experience across your databases. And now we are looking currently, like I said, our focus was on more traditional relational databases. And then now looking to support Wolke database. And unlike Redis, we really jumped into Wolke because of a strong foundation. Like we saw a strong community beside Wolke that's driven by a very permissive, really open source license, BSD license, and it is often a database of choice for low latency, high throughput applications. And again, it is a foundation-based open source database, very strong community again, and no single vendor ownership beside this database. So I believe that the Wolke's project will provide freedom and lock-in free experience. And yeah, Wolke, it's often we see synergy with open source databases, like in the initial slides, Medellin shows that when you can use Wolke as front-end cache for open source databases. And Redis, if you look into this rating for key value databases, it was very popular, and I believe we can now work together to make Wolke to be #1 choice of database for key value solutions. So how in Percona support Wolke? We just rolling out our professional services. We can help you with migration to Wolke project. We can provide health check for your setup. We'll provide the professional support, which is important. It's coming soon, and we provide also collaboration in the Wolke community. We already provide some documentation for Wolke, and for support. Again, to highlight the importance of support, there's a comment again this week from Phoronix website. Someone put comment on the Wolke 8 announcement release that we would like to use Wolke, but we also need to have commercial support, and Percona is a company which will provide professional support for Wolke database. And currently we already have a variety of packages for Ubuntu, Debian, Red Hat, ARM64, a variety of platforms. And I know previous speakers spoke about Ubuntu, but we already have packages for Ubuntu for Wolke 8.0. So if you run most popular open source Linux distribution and you want to try latest version of Wolke, it is already available from our repositories. And we provide documentation, and Ricardo just started with us to provide bug fixes, improvements to Wolke upstream database. So if you're interested, contact us for conversation. Express interest and ask any questions you may have about Percona and databases. Yeah.
In one of the previous slides, you mentioned your services.
Yes.
One of them was migration, the other was health check, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Could you explain what's the migration? What are you talking about when you say migration and health check as well?
Okay,
And,
migration.
and by the way, if you say migration, I would like to know, sorry about that, if it's a zero downtime or is it offline migration?
Well, actually, in this case, it's health check and migration related. We're talking about, of course, migration from Redis database to Walkie database. And is it zero downtime or will require some downtime? We, of course, we will try to provide zero downtime, but we will need to look into your environment, your setup. How do you use your do you use clustering? Do you use complex clustering? Is this failover? Is this replication? Is this a standalone version that comes like a health check and health check about best practices? And when we look into your environment, we will be able to provide our assessment. Can we do zero downtime migration, or how we can minimize it if zero downtime is not possible? Martin, do you want to add
Yeah,
to?
right. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Vadim. Yes, so we are working on this, right? And as you know, Redis has a lot of different use cases, a lot of different deployments, so there is no kind of one-fits-all migration, right? This is why it's a service after all. It comes, as Vadim mentioned, first of all, we find out what is your environment and how are you running it, what use cases are you using? Are you using persistence? Is it cache, right? So all these kind of things have to look into first, and then we decide on the best migration path here. But zero downtime is possible depending on how you're using it, obviously. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, that's all from me. Thank you.